So my name's Stephen Hall. If you haven't met me, I think I know most of you here by now from different implementations and setups and bits and bobs. This is the Flows Masterclass. So it's a big function that's been developed, which is going to be expanding over the next foreseeable future as we come up with some more ideas. I'm going to collect some of them ideas today off you if we can, if we get time to near the end, which would be good. House rules. So if you can turn your mics off, I think most of you have, that would be great. You can use the little emoticons, you know, the little character things, thumbs up and this, that, and the other if you want to, emojis. If you want to ask any questions, I can't see the hands going up. Okay, so I can stop at the end at different sections and I might look out for it, or hopefully. But if you put any questions either into the chat, and when I'll stop at different places, and then Rolf can read out what those questions are to me. But the point is, when I'm sharing the screen and I'm going through it, I see the hands going up. So don't think I'm ignoring you. I just literally don't know until I go back onto this screen here where I can see that kind of stuff. So you can, if you do have a burning question, feel free to unmute your mic and just ask the question. I know there's quite a few people on this. Don't be afraid. There's a lot of people here who know nothing about flows, so there's no such thing as a daft question. So feel free to unmute your mic and ask the question. So if I put it in the comments, unmute your mic and ask the question. If you put your hand up, hopefully we'll spot it in the section breaks that I have. It's down for 2 hours, this session. Now it's the first time I've run it because it's a brand new feature. And there's a lot of stuff to cover, which is why it's longer than the normal masterclass. But we're not sure, depending on questions and this, that, and the other, how long it's going to take. 2 hours is going to be the tops. Okay, I'm not waiting around longer than 2 hours, so don't think we're going on longer than that. But at the same time, it might be an hour and a half or something. It might be shorter. So we're just going to see, depending on kind of questions. I got a feeling it'll be longer than an hour, but it'll probably be less than 2 hours though, for sure. Anything else? At the end of the session, then I'll hang around so you can ask any questions. So if you do want to ask a question and you think it's more specific to you, to your particular setup or particular flow that you're creating, then you hang on to the end if you can. Obviously, you don't want to listen to everybody going on about a specific scenario, but I'm happy to answer them at the end. Or if you got any questions and you just think, you know what, I'd rather not ask it in front of everybody, I want to hang around to the end, no problem at all. Okay, just hang around to the end, you can ask away. Okie dokie. So on that bombshell, let's get on with me sharing the screen. So initially, the way this is going to work is I'm going to take you through the a presentation. There's going to be gaps in between, like in each section, where I'm going to give you a chance to kind of ask any questions about it. We're going to go through the presentation. Then I'm going to give you a live demo. Okay, woo, live demo. And then after the live demo, you're going to have a chance to, we're going to do a little exercise where we're going to talk about potentially like other ways we can develop the function, moving function, other uses that we may have not realized that you think might be useful to develop. And also there's the chance for you to do a bit of hands-on as well, if you want to. But we're going to see. We'll see how we feel, see how the time's getting on before we do that. Because I know that can be a bit awkward when everyone goes off to their own system, and it just can be a bit awkward. And some people will be moving faster than others doing these things if they've played around with flows before. So get with the flow. So what you're going to achieve in this masterclass is basically I'm going to teach you all about flows. Okay, how to set them up, what they can be used for, and then we'll talk about, like future developments and this, that, and the other. Keywords to know. So what a flow is, I'm going to repeat this line a few times to you during today. Flow is a set of steps that either the volunteer or the admin needs to complete. Okay, a step is part of a flow, so one or more steps make up a flow. And the flow trigger is the thing that puts the volunteer onto that flow of steps. It's what happens when to put the volunteer onto that flow of steps. And then another thing I'm going to mention is the super admin menu. So to use this flows, you need to be in the enterprise system, and to set up flows, you need to be a super admin. It's because of the option to create it and all the steps and this and the others in the super admin menu. Okay, so where's it come from, flows? Well, I'll tell you. It comes from a function that we had previously called roles, which some of you may have played around with. But basically, it was this need that a lot of our customers had to kind of process a volunteer through a set of steps that they have to do. And this could be directly after registration. It could be before they're allowed on an opportunity, lots of things like that. Now, originally, this roles, it did that, but the steps were all kind of text-based steps. So they told the volunteer what they needed to do without making it easy, without putting the options there right in front of them. You know, so it'd say go and add a reference without, you know, they couldn't do it from that screen. They had to navigate away. And what we realized over time was it was a bit too complicated for the less IT savvy users, and it could be improved significantly. So we just decided, with actually in line with this come to light, we're working with NHS Scotland, where some of you are probably on this call here, where we realized that it was going to be too complex, so we needed to improve this functionality substantially. So we worked along with those because they had very complicated flows, very complicated steps with, you know, 10, 15 different steps in that need to be completed. Imagine a volunteer trying to volunteer in a NHS ward, all the different things you needed them to do to be able to do that, different, you know, hoops they needed to jump through. So it was too complicated using the roles. So we built these flows instead, which simplified it massively for the volunteers and for yourselves. Okay, so that's where it's come from. It's come from the idea of, okay, we need to get volunteer through a set of steps, and how do we make it as simple as possible for you, the admins, and also the volunteers to be able to do that and monitor that. So introduction to flows. So it's structured onboarding, enhanced safeguarding and compliance, because some of, you know, a lot of this to do with hospitals and stuff, and safeguarding, making sure that people have been through the various checks and stuff before they're allowed on an opportunity. Reduced application of effort, shared responsibility. So it allows the volunteers to do what they can do. You don't have to do everything for the volunteer. So it shares that responsibility out and reduces duplication of effort. So flows, told you I'm going to say this line a few times. So flows are a set of steps that either the volunteer or the admin needs to complete. Process that. That's a really important line for you to understand. They can be used to manage volunteers through a process before they are allowed to do something. Okay, and that's something we can set. You know, so to lots of different things. So you can say, oh, before they're allowed on an opportunity, before they're allowed to get on any opportunity whatsoever, or to get onto a specific opportunity, before I grant them this qualification. It could be anything. So the example I got on here is post-registration flow. So if you may say, well, on our system, when a volunteer registers, for every volunteer, there's certain things that they have to do. They have to have seen this video. They have to have we have to have had a meeting with them, had a chat with them. We need their ID to be confirmed. Just making this stuff up on the spot, but you get the idea. So you could create a flow with those steps in, which means that when the volunteer registers, they have to go through, it puts them straight onto those steps, and the volunteers have to complete those steps. And then when you say, okay, I'm going to approve the volunteer on this flow, they've done all the steps, then and only then it lets them go and join opportunities. That's an example. Okay, so automating the workflow. So basically it's broken down into kind of three areas. You've got the initial, with flows, you've got the initial trigger, which is the thing that happens, which puts the volunteer onto the flow. It could be they register. It could be they try to get into an opportunity. It could be you as an admin, you manually want that volunteer to do those steps for whatever reason. Okay, they need to do these steps to be qualified in this particular thing. Okay, so you can manually put them onto it, but there's a trigger. At the moment, the triggers are registration, they finished registration, or they want to get to a certain opportunity, or the admin can put them onto it. But it is going to expand, and we'll talk about that in the future with different triggers. Once it's been triggered, it said, okay, the volunteer's on that flow of steps. So then the volunteer or the admin, steps could be for something for the volunteer to do, like upload your ID, or could be for the admin to do, like arrange a meeting. Okay, but those steps need to be completed by either the volunteer or the admin. Then at the end of it, the admin will approve the volunteer on that flow. They click the approve button, and then it says, okay, then great, you've done the flow. And there might be an action at the end of that. Like I said, maybe it gives them, it lets them onto the opportunity, or it lets them get into any opportunity, or there's various actions, which we'll go into in a bit. Okay, so you can set actions. The bit at the bottom here, what it's talking about, is you can set actions up either after each step or specific steps that they're completed. So imagine the trigger is they've registered. The first step is they upload their ID. Second step is they do references. You might say, well, after they upload their ID, I want it to email me or email a specific person and tell them to go and check it. So you've got kind of you've got completion actions after the steps. You don't have to, but you could do. And you also have completion actions after the whole flow has been approved. Yes, I've done all of the steps, I'm happy. I click on approve, and that action might be, okay, now give them full access to the opportunities so they can go and join opportunities. It could be a number of things. So you have the trigger, puts the volunteer onto the flow. If the volunteer completes the steps, or the admin complete the steps, and at the end of it, the admin approves them. And there can be actions linked to the completion of either a step or the entire flow once it's been completed or approved. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so triggers. So as I said before, there's 3 triggers at the moment. Okay, post-registration, pre-opportunity. So post-registration is quite obvious, isn't it? I think for all of us. Okay, they register, they're automatically put onto this flow. The first page that appears after they put in their first name, last name, date of birth, they click the register button, then they land on the flows page, and it shows all the next things that they need to do. Okay, the steps in the flow, basically. That's straightforward. Pre-opportunity. So this is when you create a flow, say with all your steps in it, but then when you create the opportunity, you can say, to get on this opportunity, you need to complete this flow first, which means that when the volunteer tries to get onto the opportunity, it's going to say, hold on, you need to do these steps first. It's going to direct them to do those steps, the flow steps. And once they complete the flow steps, only when they complete the flow steps, they get an email when it's been approved, the flow's been approved, saying, okay, you can go ahead and get on that opportunity. And then the flexible one, which is, as an admin, you can manually trigger it. So you might say, I don't know, so maybe you're like National Trust Scotland, they're probably on this meeting somewhere. Hi, if you're there. They might have like quad bikes. The volunteer needs to ride a quad bike and go and move some logs or something like that from A to B. But in that scenario there, you might say, well, to get on the quad bike, I needed to have an orientation around the quad bike, how the health and safety form, watch this video. Okay. So if you wanted to, as an admin, you might say, well, if you're going to ride the quad bike, I know it's not specifically about this opportunity, but I know tomorrow you're going to be riding, in the next few days, you're going to need to ride this quad bike. I'm going to put you onto the quad bike flow, and that's going to get the volunteer to go through those steps, watch the video, sign the forms, all the rest of the stuff. Okay, so as an admin, you can manually attach a volunteer onto the flow. Okay, but all of these things, when you set them up, they're always putting the volunteer onto the flow, which is what we call the trigger. What is the trigger for the flow? Okay, so setting up a flow. So first of all, you need to set them up. As I said, it's the super admins who set them up. So you're going into your super admin menu, which you recognize here. It's on the right on your screens, but it's on the left on this slide. And down near the bottom there, you've got flows highlighted in that little red square. When you click on it, it's going to open up the page you see here. Okay, which will show all of your active flows that you've previously created. And then you've also got, pardon me, an add flow button beneath there. Okay. And obviously keeping in mind that the requirements to do this is you need an enterprise system and you need to be logged in as a super admin, so you can actually see the super admin menu to get to the screen to create the flow. Okay, so super admin menu flows. Once you click on, you're going to create a flow. So you click on the add button. First details it's saying is the details of the flow itself. So you got the flow, and that's made up of the multiple steps. So there's details you hold against the flow, and then obviously you can add details for the different steps depending on what they are. So we're talking about the initial flow details here. So you're saying what the trigger is up here. It says flow type. That's basically flow the trigger to put the volunteer onto the flow. Then you've got obviously the name of the flow, description. You assign it to an admin. It's one of the options. So that's who is the person who's going to actually be managing or the volunteer through the steps. Who is that? Who needs to receive the communications when the volunteer uploads their ID, for example? So you know to go in there and check it and complete the step in the flow. So that's this person here. That's the admin that you assign it to here. Okay. So we got the trigger, the information, the name and description of the flow, and then who's running the flow, basically, who's managing it and needs to receive the communications. Okay. Just beneath that bit there, where you've put in those details, you've got post-completion actions. This is saying, okay, well, when the whole flow is completed, because I spoke before, didn't I, saying about you can have actions after each step is completed, like email particular people, and you can also have actions after the whole flow has been approved by the admin. Okay, so when it's all been approved, then give the volunteer access onto the system. That'll be a status update, which means they can then get onto opportunities. Maybe email specific people, admins, email the volunteer, I don't know. You can email literally anybody. Or maybe it's putting them in a particular group. This is going into, once they've completed these actions, they go into my group called the Quad Bike Riders Group. Back to the scenario I explained before. Yeah, and there is more than this, but these are kind of three of the main ones. So we have post actions that can happen once the volunteer has completed all of those steps in the flow. Okay, that's what this is talking about here. Okay, so we've got our flow. We're putting our, decided what the trigger is. We're putting our details of it, the name and description. Decided if we need any action at the end of it once the flow has been approved. But then we need to add our steps. This is the key bit. No point having a flow without any steps. Steps is what it's all about. What steps do the volunteer or the admin need to do? So as you see here from the screen, we've got the flow details bit here, which is what I've just been through. There's the trigger. There's the description, name and description. That's the who's running the flow and who receives the communications. Then down the bottom here, we've got the post-completion actions I spoke about. Give the volunteer access to the system or email somebody, things like that. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the steps. So they clicked on the Add Step button. And when they do, it comes up with a list of different types of steps that, you know, it might be like upload files, upload qualifications. Maybe it's, sharing a link out to a video they need to watch. Maybe it's asking them for their referees' details. Okay, so all these steps, when they click on this button here, it gives you a list. We're going to come on to in a minute, a list of all different step types, things that the volunteer or the admin. Okay, but when they click, and depending on the step type that they choose, it's going to show slightly different over here. It tends to look the same, but there's slight differences between them. And this is the step details. Okay, so they put the step details in, which is the name of the step. You know, upload your ID or something like that, or book a meeting if it's for the admins. Tell them to book a meeting. They put the description in, and down here we've got some information, which is going to come on to in a second, about who can see the step. Can the volunteer even see it? Maybe it's hidden from them, and who can complete it. And then, as I said before, we also have step completion actions. So we've got the flow completion actions down here, post completion actions, when the flow has been approved, the whole flow has been approved. But you can also have actions when each individual step has been approved, or has been completed, I should say. Okay. So you would add a step in here, you put in your details, and then you could add multiple steps. You know, some of our customers have like 15, 16 steps. It's quite unusual to have that many, but it can be that many. So available step types. So I mentioned before, when you click on the add step button, it says there's different types of steps, and you'll have slightly different options on the right hand side. Upload ID and files, self-explanatory, I suppose. Custom questions. So you could create custom questions against the volunteer's profile, like, I don't know, it could be t-shirt size or something like that. Anything you want, and then you can add it as a step type. So the volunteer is asked to complete that specific question. So for those of you who remember kind of setup of your system, you have your custom registration fields, but you can also add just custom profile questions, which means the volunteer hasn't seen those questions when they've registered, because it's not a registration question, it's just a profile question. If they went in to edit their profile, they would see it there. Okay, and this is one way you can get them to complete it, is you could put it into a flow, which would automatically allow them to answer those questions. Collect references. Obviously, ask the volunteer for the referee's details, and it's going to send off the references. And it follows a normal kind of process with references. Obviously, they get the referee answers the questions, it gets sent back to the admin for you to check and to approve. But it's all kind of built into the flows. This. So references. You can book meetings or record background checks. They're admin only steps. Like obviously the volunteer can't book a meeting with the admin, books a meeting with a volunteer. And same with background checks. It's the admin who records the background check information, the PVGs and your DBSs against the system. So this would be a step that's telling the admin to do something. You need to go and do this thing for the volunteer. Okay. And then we have kind of general verification things where you can just say anything. Make sure that you've watched this video with a link to the video. Okay, but then the volunteer is just reading it. You can't guarantee they're watching the video, but hopefully they're telling the truth and they've watched the video and they can complete the step. Okay, and with all these things, like I said before, you can control the visibility of them. So there's quite a lot of and we're still building on it, of like flexibility with these steps. So obviously the order that they appear in, but the main ones are things like who can see the steps. So you might say, well, actually, one of the steps is I need to book a meeting with a volunteer, but I don't need them to see that. So you might hide that particular step from the volunteer so they don't see it. You might say, I tell you what, I want to book a meeting with them, but only once I've completed that meeting do they then have to do these other steps. So you can even do that. I'm going to come on to this in more detail. You can even say, all right, well, when the volunteers started on this flow, say they've registered and they're put onto this flow, the first step is for me to book a meeting with them. And the volunteer doesn't see any other steps at that stage. All they can see is the fact that I have to book a meeting with them. But when I book that meeting and that meeting's taken place and I've completed that step, me as an admin, yes, I've booked the meeting and it took place and they were a wonderful volunteer, and you complete that step, then it makes the other steps visible to the volunteer and sends them an email. There's more steps available for you to do now. Upload your ID, do your references, things like that. So you can break down these flows into chunks where the visibility of the steps becomes greater and greater depending on what previous steps have been completed. And exciting, isn't it? I did like that addition. So creating a flow step. So you've seen this add step button. You saw me clicking it before. There's the list of things we just went through, flow types we went through. And so this one here is uploading ID. They put in the name, the details. Can the volunteer process this step? Yes, they can. I want the volunteer to upload the ID, so absolutely they need to be able to process this step. Okay, do you want to hide it from the volunteer? No, because I want them to do it. Do you want to hide this step until another step has been completed, which is what I was just talking about? No, I'm fine with that. And then because I've chose the upload file option here, then I have some extra options down here. Like I said, these steps, the options will differ slightly depending on the step type that you choose. Because if it's this one here, uploading ID, then you've got the option, how many types of ID can they upload? Okay. And then down the bottom here, we've got the the kind of step completion options. So what happens when the step is completed? Should it email somebody? Should something else happen? Okay, that's creating the step. Okay, so actions when the step is completed. So we talked about the flow actions. When the whole flow has been approved, things can happen like put the volunteer, give the volunteer access to the system, send them an email, things like that. Well, and as I said before, for each step, you can do the same thing. So when they complete this step, do something. I want them to email, they can tell me when they completed this particular step. Okay. Maybe it's they've uploaded their ID. We'll tell you what, send me an email when they've uploaded their ID so I can go and check it. Me as the administrator. Email the volunteer, email anybody, even outside the system. Create a to-do task. So for those of you familiar with to-do tasks, I bet some of you on here probably never used it before, so it's relatively new. So to-do tasks are when an admin, you can assign to-do tasks for other admins. You like the sound of that, don't you? So you can say, remember to sort this person, give this person a ring tomorrow and find out what went wrong at their opportunity, or sort out a criminal background check for this volunteer. And you can assign it to other admins. Now that can be used within flows as well. So when a step is completed, it can assign a task to a particular admin. The next question is, well, how does that admin know that they've been given that task? Well, when they log in, it's literally on the first page you see when you log in. It says to do tasks, and you'll see any tasks that have been assigned to you. Okay. So completing. So any questions so far? Rolf, have we got any questions in the chat?
There's been a few, but I've been answering as we go along.
Okay. All right, no worries. We're good to go. Go ahead then. Okay. Okay, so completing flow steps as a volunteer. As an volunteer, there's some English for you there. As a volunteer. So for the volunteer side, we make it super simple because obviously we have to. They have no training or anything like that. So when they log in, they can click on the home button at the top, which is basically the first page to see when they log in anyway. And then on the left-hand side, where they have all those options like the profile, their opportunities, expenses, there's flows and applications. And when they click on there, it will take them to this page here where they can see the flows. Okay. Now it's even simpler for things like if it's a post-registration flow, because literally the volunteer registers and it drops them straight onto this page because it knows that's what they have to do next. They have to complete these flow steps. But either way, if they ever want to see what flows they're on, when they log in, they go to the side menu, they click on flows and applications, and then they will see a page like this. This volunteer's on a single flow. It's called My First Flow, and there are the steps down there. Okay, and as they click on the details of the step on the right-hand side under the actions, it will tell them what has to happen in order for that to be completed. Now, these are in different colors. I'm going to come on to this shortly, but just take note of it at the moment. These boxes are different colors. And it's not just because we like to make lots of fancy colors when we're doing these, when we're developing these things. They have a reason. Okay, and it's like the traffic light system. So it's green is good, red is red. Application proposal. Please complete all the red step. Red means it needs to be completed. Yellow means that it's kind of part way to being completed, and then grey at the bottom there means it's admin only. But we'll come on to that anyway in a bit more detail. Okay, so the volunteer goes to flows and applications, and that's when they see the flow information. That's a takeaway from that slide. Completing flow steps as a volunteer. So they've gone to that page. They click on the details button, as I said, and then it shows the actions on the right-hand side. So this one, the step that the volunteer needs to complete is they need to upload 2 pieces of ID. So when the volunteer goes to this page, they click on the details, and it shows on the right-hand side here, okay, upload your ID, give it a description. And all of this information, it's stored directly against the volunteer. So once the volunteer's done this, if you go into the volunteer's profile and look at their ID or their uploaded kind of files, you will see this information that they've uploaded. It will be there, held against the volunteer in the place you'd normally expect it to be in the volunteer's profile. Okay, so that's dead easy for volunteers to complete steps. What about for admins? For admins, we go to the volunteer management menu. Remember, I'm going to demo this, give you a live demo. So you go to the volunteer management menu, go to flow applications, and then you see this screen here. So this shows us on the left-hand side, we have onboarding applications, which are your post-registration flows. Okay. Then we have pending applications, which is basically every flow which is not post-registration. Okay, so maybe it's flows related to an opportunity they're trying to get onto, or one that the admins just added them to themselves. Okay. And then if they're successful or denied, they'll appear in these two tables down here. We can see who are on, so this one, the onboarding applications has been selected. We can see which volunteers have registered, and we can see that the flow type is post-registration. And we can see near the end here how far they are through those steps. Okay. Now, for me to see what's going on and with this Alfonso Moore, I click on the manage button on the right-hand side, and that will take me into that volunteer's flow, and I'll be able to see the steps, which they've done 33%. So there's 3 steps. So they've done 1 step, they haven't done 2. So we have to see which step they've done. Okay. So the volunteer would click on the manage button, as I showed you there. It brings up, goes to the volunteer. This one's Davis Richmond, and they can see all the steps. The DBS check's been sorted. I can see that because it's green. These ones here, these are all yellow, which means the volunteer's done their bit, the jigsaw. I've got to finish it off. I've got to check it and make sure I'm happy with the ID they've uploaded, or the references, for example. Okay, that's why the yellow. But once I click on there and I mark it as complete, it would go green. Each of the steps would turn green. Okay, so when I click on that edit button here, this is what it shows me. It shows me, the volunteer's uploaded ID. Here's the ID. And I look at it and say, yes, that is the person I met in the meeting and I was chatting to. I'm happy with that ID, and they could complete the step by clicking on the complete step button, weirdly enough, on the bottom right of the screen. Okay. Okay, so the volunteers, the trigger's been happened, the volunteers been put onto the flow, the volunteers done some steps. Me as the admin, I've done some steps. And at the end of it, all the boxes have gone green. Everything has been done. All the steps have been completed. Okay, then it's going to activate, not activate, but it's going to allow you to click on the approve button down here. Okay, now this will be grayed out until all your steps are completed. But once they're all completed, you can then click on the approve button. This is you approving the volunteer on the entire flow. The steps have already been completed. They're all green. This is approving them on the entire flow, saying, yes, they've done everything that I needed them to do for this flow. Okay. Now, there might be some scenarios where exceptional circumstances, it says down here, where you might say, actually, I know they haven't actually had the meeting with them, but I had a chat with them before. It's not necessary for me to arrange a meeting. And okay, so you could use this button down here to basically override the fact that they haven't completed all the steps, and it will allow you to approve the volunteer on the flow, even though all the steps haven't been completed. But usually, all the steps need to be completed before you approve, for obvious reasons. Okay, so this is that traffic light system I was saying. So I won't go into, I think this is pretty straightforward. So like I said, red means that it's incomplete. Yellow means that it's been partly done, but it's not been marked as complete. The step hasn't been marked as complete. Green means, yes, it's been completed, marked as complete by the admin. And gray means, oh, it's an admin only task. So the volunteer, you don't need to worry about this. It's for the admin to do. Flows use cases. So we've got example one, which is a pre-opportunity flow for a hospital ward. Okay, so this is a lot simpler than it would actually be. I know from experience. There's loads of steps and then hoops for good reason, safeguarding hoops they have to jump through. But you might say, okay, then for this opportunity, when they try and get onto it, I need to have a meeting with them first. So you create your flow, okay, called hospital ward or whatever you want to call it. The first step is a meeting. So that's something that the admin needs to arrange with a volunteer, a meeting with them. And then for this example here, the reason I got this arrow here is we're saying, oh, well, when the meeting has been completed, so when the admin is happy that the meeting's taken place, they click the complete button, then it's going to make these additional 2 steps visible to the volunteer. And it'll email them telling them that you've got new steps available to you. And then it's going to ask the volunteer then to upload 2 types of ID and upload some referee details. Okay, so that might be for a specific opportunity, like you're saying, they work in a hospital ward. Yeah, I need to have a chat with them first. We definitely need their ID and we definitely need a reference from them. I mean, in reality, there'd be a lot more steps, as we know. There'd be DBSs, PVGs, there'd be all sorts of probably training and all sorts goes on before someone's let loose in a hospital ward. Example 2 is the post-registration. So this is maybe might relate to more of you here. So you might say, when every volunteer registers, we need them all to upload some ID and we need a reference off all of them. Okay, that's fine. So you can set that up. Similar thing, upload their ID. Volunteer enters the referee details, and then you approve the flow. And only when you approve the flow does it let the volunteer get onto their opportunities. Okay. Live demo. So the pressure's on me, isn't it? The live demo. Before I do that, is there any questions? Is there any worth reading out, Rolf, that other people might find useful?
Sorry. Yeah, there's a few in here. So a couple of people raised some good points. There was a good one from Kate about what happens if someone doesn't make the grade for the flow. So right now we've only got actions for when the flow is complete, when it's been approved, and when the step's complete, but we don't have any actions for when an approval is denied. So that's a great thing to add in there. So in this case, it was being able to delete the volunteer, for instance. So if you have a post-registration flow and they don't come up to scratch, and you deny that flow, then one of the actions could be that you mark that volunteer as deleted or remove their access, that sort of thing. So that's a great idea. We've got that in.
Good.
Helen mentioned about being on 2 flows at once. Yes, you may well have a volunteer on multiple flows. They'll obviously only be on the post-registration flow once when they're first registered, but after that, they may be joining a different opportunity to be on different flows at the same time. And I also just wanted to point out, there's a couple of questions about what to do if you're already using roles. So if you haven't already noticed, on the role management page now, there's a little link which says convert to flows. So you can convert each of your roles to a flow. So anyone that's been using flows, that's been using roles, will right now have access to roles and flows. So it's only pertains to people that have been using roles. Now you can hit that convert link. It'll change your role into a flow, a basic flow, which will need editing and changing because you want to access all the new types of steps and things. But it's a start. Once you're ready with all your flows to replicate or replace your current roles, get in touch with me with a support ticket, and I can take over the next steps, which will be making sure that all the volunteers that had the old role are moved onto the new flow and approved. And also all the opportunities which had the old roles are now associated with the new flows. And then moving forward, you would just use the roles.
That's good. Yeah, good tip there. There's not many out there, but there's a few that's going to attain to. Any others? Is that the ones?
No, that's probably the ones that be most interested to other people.
No worries. Thank you, Rob. So I'm going to jump on now and give you a live demo. I might even ask you some questions afterwards. Scary, isn't it? Okay, so live demo. So I'm on a system here, our training system. Let's make sure it's not logged me out. Yes, it has. So I'm logged in as super admin. Okay, so this could be the majority of you see the screen when you log in. Okay, it's the main admin dashboard. I'm a super admin. How do I know I'm a super admin? Because I see the cog in the top right, which gives me access to the super admin menu. I go down to flows. Okay, I've got an old flow set up here, but I'm going to create a new one now. And I'm going to add flow. So I'm going to do a post-registration flow. It's going to be called onboarding flow. Okay, put a description in here. Every volunteer needs to complete these steps after registration. Who's running it? I'll just choose myself. Okay. And is there any post-completion action? So what happens when they complete this flow? Yeah, when they complete this flow, I want it to grant the access to the volunteer. So they won't be able to get on any opportunities because they don't have access until they've completed this flow. Was there a question there? Sorry, Mike just... Nope, okay. So they won't be able to get on any opportunities, okay, until they've completed this flow. Then it's going to grant them access on the system, changes their status. Okay, but I need to click on the add button here. Don't forget to click on the add button a few times. Okay. The reason why it's an add button in here, and I realized it, I was like, why? Is because you can add multiple actions. So you might say, oh, when they've done this flow and it's been approved on this flow, doesn't just give them access on the system. It also emails the volunteer or does something else. So you can add multiple kind of actions once the flow has been approved. But we're going to say, okay, it's got onboarding flow. This is the admin who's dealing with it. And the only action at the moment is it grants the volunteer access once they've completed the flow. Next, we're going to add step. And the step I'm going to do is book a meeting. I'm going to say, first of all. So I'm going to say book meeting with volunteer. Into there. Yeah. Can the volunteer complete this step? No, they can't. It's the admin who's booking the meeting. Do you want to hide it from the volunteer? No, I'm happy for them to see the fact that's what they're waiting on. It's the meeting to be booked. Okay. Any step actions after this has been completed? No, that's fine. So I'll just save the step. So first one's done. Now, once I've had the meeting with them, if I complete that step and I'm happy that for them to be a volunteer on my system, there's other things I want them to do. Like I want them to upload ID. Two lots of ID. Okay. Can the volunteer complete the step? Yes, they can. It's the volunteer who's uploading the ID. By default, hide the step from the volunteer. No, I want to hide the step from the volunteer until a certain thing has happened. That's what I want to happen. I want to say, don't even show them don't even give them the ability to upload ID or ask them to upload ID until I've completed that meeting and I'm happy that the meeting went well. So I've marked it as hide until the step selected below is complete. And the step I've chosen is book meeting with a volunteer. Okay. So, but when it does show, how many IDs do I need to gather? I need two lots of ID. So I change that to 2. When the step is verified, does anything need to happen? No. What are the steps? Well, maybe add another step when I'm here. So maybe collect references. Okay. Collect the reference. So you might have details here about family, who the reference can be from, no family members, etc. All that kind of stuff. Can the volunteer? Yes, they can. The volunteer complete the step. Can I complete the sentence? Oh, sure. Oh, wait, they collect. It should be 2 L's there, Steve. Can the volunteer complete the step? Yes, I want the volunteer to put in the referee details. I don't know who the referees are. So yes, I do want the volunteer to complete the step. Should I hide it until something's happened? Yes, I want to hide it until that book in the meeting, the volunteer has been completed. So when the volunteer registers at the moment, they're going to see that a meeting has to be booked, but they're not going to see these 2 steps down here because I've hidden them until this has been marked as complete. So the volunteer will not see them until this has been completed. Then these will become visible and the volunteer gets an email telling them so, obviously. Okay. So with the reference one, hide it until the book meeting's been completed. Happy with that. And choose the reference form, basic reference form. Does anything need to happen once that step has been completed? No, it's fine with that. Save the step. Good. So we have a post-registration flow now. We have the details of the flow in here. When the whole flow, which is all these steps, are completed, it's going to grant the volunteer access. Here's the steps. Admin needs to book a meeting with them. When that step's been completed, then it's going to make these 2 steps visible to the volunteer. And the volunteer is going to be able to upload 2 IDs and enter the referee's details. Start processing a reference. Yep. Should we see what it looks like then? Let's give it a trial run now. So I'm going to take off my admin hat, put on my volunteer hat, and I'm on the front page. And I'm going to register. So I put in my Stevo Testo 123. That'll do. My email address. And I register. It sends an email through. You've seen this. It happens to all your systems to make sure it's a real person and not a robot. Sends an email to the volunteer. The volunteer goes to their email account. Got a fancy way around it here. So this would be their Gmail, Outlook, Hotmail, whatever it is, inbox. They confirm on their email address. Then they start registering. So they put in their password. Put in their first name. Stevo Testo. Okay. Date of birth, 2000, I wish. And days are long gone. Male, phone number there. Ethnicity. Do you consider yourself to have, get my teeth in? Do you consider yourself to have a disability? No. Is there any conditions or illnesses you need to be aware of? No. Next, put in my address. Next. Final question for the volunteers registration. This is the custom question. You don't see this. There's a daft custom question in there, just because it's a training system. Opt in to receiving emails, agree to the T's and C's, and they register. So just to make sure you're up to speed here, I've created a flow. It was a post-registration flow. This volunteer is just registered. So what happens when they click on the register button now? Apart from Google showing me my autofill thing, drops them straight onto the flows page because it knows that's what they have to do next. It says admin. There's one step here to be completed. It's for the admin. That's why it's a black box in here. If they click on the details, it says, we'll be in touch shortly, details of the meeting to discuss your application. So it's letting the volunteer know you don't have to do anything. The admin's got to sort this out. Okay. So let's look at it then from the admin side. So the volunteers just registered. They've been put onto the flow. There's nothing else the volunteer can do until the meeting's taken place. Until that's taken place. Okay, so admin hat on. The admin would receive an email, obviously, and then they're going to go to their flow applications here. And on the onboarded applications, which is your post-opportunity applications, which is what the volunteers just done, registered, they can see Stevo Testo. Okay. It's a post-registration one, and there's 3 steps. Like I click on this manage button, it's going to let me see those steps then and book that meeting and do everything else I need to do. There's a little thing down here which shows you, might find it quite interesting, shows you how, imagine you've got loads of volunteers registering and being put onto this process. You can see how far along they are in actually completing the flow, the post-registration flow. It's like a race thing that happens. Anyway, bit of fun for you. So click on the manage button, and I can now see Stevo Testo book the meeting with a volunteer. it's red, which means that it hasn't been done yet. So I click on the edit button. I'm going to book the meeting for tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And the reason for meeting is initial chat. Okay, it's in person and it's in the office. It could be virtual. It could be, obviously, this basic kind of meeting settings you get. And put in a message, see you then, whatever the message is that you're going to send them, the email message. So I book this meeting, sorry. And it's gone green because now the admin has booked that meeting. So we're going to pretend now that tomorrow has taken place. Look into the future. Tomorrow's taken place. The meeting's happened. Okay, they were a great volunteer. I was dead happy with them. So that's why I can go in here and I can complete the step, which is what I did. I booked the meeting, but complete the step. It's done. So now the volunteer, now it's green, the volunteer can see these additional steps, if you remember, from the setup. Okay. And it will tell them, they'll get an email saying more steps are now visible for you, because they couldn't see these steps before, could they? So they'll get an email telling them new steps are now visible, or now available, I think it says. So admin hat off, volunteer hat back on. Okay, so the volunteer needs to complete these final 2 steps. So let me, is that one? Go back to my volunteer view, and the volunteer logs into the system, or if they click on that link, it will take them straight through to the flows page, the link in the email. But either way, they log into the system, they could click on flows and applications this way if they wanted to. Onboarding flow. And there we go. Book a meeting with a volunteer. Upload 2 types of ID. Oh, I've missed something out in that references step, haven't I? I've done something wrong with the setup of it. Never mind. So they put in their ID. Okay. And so the first ID would be, okay, they're choosing say a passport here. And next one might be a driving license. And they save. That step has now been completed. Okay. There should be another one on there for references. I think I've hidden it or something like that. I've done something daft with the setup of it. I'll have a look in a second. So, okay, so the volunteers done their bit. Admin goes back. They go back to the flow to monitor it. They can click on the edit button here. Okay, and they can see the 2 types of ID. They can click on there if they want to see it like enlarged on the full screen if they wanted to. But I'm going to say, no, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that ID. It makes sense. I'm happy with it. So I mark it as complete. It's done. Click the reference. I've just done something wrong with the setup. It works in the same way. So essentially, the volunteer would have clicked on the references, enter in the referee's details, and it would have sent off the reference forms to the referees. And then I'll click on the edit button here, and I'll be able to see those references with the details of those references. So think kind of questions you get in a reference form. How do you know this person? Are they trustworthy? I'll be able to see that details from here. Okay, and I'll be able to read it and say, I'm happy with those references, and complete that step. So now, let's just step back and just go over what's happened here. The volunteers registered. It said that a meeting needs to be booked. The admin booked the meeting. It took place. And once they marked the meeting as being completed, it then made these 2 steps visible for the volunteer. The volunteer then goes in there and they upload their ID, upload the reference, add the reference details on there. And then the admin goes in and says, yes, I'm happy with the ID and I'm happy with the references. So all the steps have been completed. That's why this button is now green. The approve flow button. This is really important. When the admin clicks on approve, if you remember, there was an action associated with it. It was going to give the volunteer access to the system. Okay, so just to show you before we do that, at the moment, the volunteer tries to get on opportunities. Get this opportunity here. It says, your profile has not yet been cleared for volunteering. It won't let them get on any opportunity until that flow has been completed. Let me go back to the admin view again, admin cap on again. So let's approve the flow. I'm approving this volunteer on the onboarding flow. approve. Brilliant. Now the volunteer receives an email telling them, great, you've now got access to the system. You've completed the flow, you've now got access to the system. Okay. So now, from the volunteer side, if I refresh this page, go to the search page again to show you. Now, if I go down to the admin, I can get onto the opportunity. Look, there's no message there, and there's the join button. You can join and be on the opportunity. That's it. I'm on the opportunity now. Okay, and that's kind of the end of the process. Okay. Beneath here, when you're viewing, so when we're doing this flow applications, you do have a little application log here, which is basically showing you what's happened. So if you're not sure what's happened in what order, you can see a log of all the different actions that you or the volunteers done in completing these steps. Okay. Any questions over any of that or anything in the chat, Rolf? Hello.
Sorry, I put my camera on instead of my mic. Hello. Yeah, the first one's about whether to include things that you might have in the application process. So whether to use a flow and an application process on an opportunity at the same time. For now, the application process for an individual opportunity will stay there. But the advice is anything you can put in the flow, put in the flow. So any steps you need to check, put them in the flow and don't leave them to a manual check in the application. But you can still have the situation where you've got an opportunity which is protected by a flow. And remember that flows can protect multiple opportunities. They can be put on top of any number of opportunities. But you may have very specific things you might want to ask the volunteer first before they join a certain opportunity. So you might want to retain that application step before they actually join the opportunity, even though they've completed the more general term, the more general stuff within the flow. So keep that in mind. I'll say it at the minute. The other ones have answered in the chat.
Okay, cheers, Rolf. Yeah, so it's a good question actually, and it's something because at the moment, you know, before the invention of flows, then before this, then you create opportunities, you make them applying, which is what Rolf's talking about. You could have an applying opportunity, and you ask yourself, well, what is an applying opportunity? Well, it's basically saying don't let the volunteer onto the opportunity until you've checked who they are and you've approved them. You know, so it's kind of similar to a flow. It's just a step. It's something that has to happen before you allow the volunteer onto the opportunity. Now we have got some functions in there at the moment, like for example, references. You know, you can say, oh, this opportunity requires 2 references. Okay, we're going to slowly start migrating them all into the flows. So we're going to start to see the creating the opportunity page getting simplified when we put more and more things into these flows, like functionality into these flows. Yeah, so keep that in mind. So at the moment you might think, well, do I add this as a flow, or do I just add it as an option when I'm creating the opportunity? Okay, we'll just know, well, those options are going to start disappearing and it's going to be moved more into these flows here. So any kind of restrictions you're putting in place really is going to start be part of the flow. Okay. Right, go back to the design your own flows. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay. Oh, this is something I wanted to have a play around with. This is a vanity project, I'll be honest with you guys, more than anything else. I come across as I want to use this in a training session. So we have all your names on here. Okay, I'm going to ask you a question depending on what name it falls on. So get yourself ready. Okay, if it does land on you, unmute your mic. Okay, and I'll ask you the question, and then yeah, you give me the answer. Okay, here we go. All your names are on here, by the way. So who've we got? Sarah C. Sarah C. Come on down. The price is right.
Yay! Hi.
Yay! Okay. What is a flow made up of?
A set of steps that admin or volunteers need to complete.
Excellent. Superb. Okay. Passed. Congratulations. Next one. D. Roberts. D. Roberts, are you there? Coming down, the price is right. Unmute your mic, D. Roberts, if you're there. I have to spin again. Too late. Ooh. Elizabeth Logan, are you there?
I am, yes.
Yeah. Okay, Elizabeth. Do you remember what the colours of the boxes? You had the red, orange, green, and grey. Do you remember what they resembled or what they were telling?
Green's done.
Yep.
I'm going to presume. Red is needs looking at.
Yep.
Is black admin? Is that right?
Yep.
I made that up.
Black
What was the
admin,
other colour? Can't remember what the other one is.
Orange. Oh, sorry, yellow. Really, it's kind of yellow. I think
That what volunteers need to do.
It means that it's been partly done. So if you were saying I need 2 lots of ID collected from the volunteer, once the volunteers uploaded them 2 types of ID, then it would turn orange, essentially yellow, to resemble that. Okay, well they've done their bit, but it's not been completed by me, the admin. I haven't actually said it's been done yet, so it's kind of in that status, almost done. The status. Okay, that's great. Let's do one more. Right, I'm going to go to you, Mark, if it's not Kate. Kay Barker, you there? Well, I know Mark's there, so I'll pretend Mark is the nearest one. That's what I should go to, isn't it? Mark, do you remember what the 3 triggers were which are currently available in the system to put a volunteer onto a flow?
Pre-registration.
Yeah, post-registration. Yeah.
Post-registration, pre-opportunity.
Yep.
And then just a manual one that you can assign at any time, I think.
Correct, Armando. Excellent. Well done. Top marks. Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it. Okie dokie. So we've done the live demo. Now, what time are you on now? 10 past. Oh, we've got time. We've got time. If you want to, you can have a play around on your system. The idea is, I like to get you doing a bit of hands-on. Now, it's hard because there's a lot of people on this meeting, and you're probably aware of this yourselves. Stop sharing a second. There's a lot of people on this meeting, but if you feel confident, you can go and have a play around. Now, the one thing I will say to you when you're doing this in your system is if you're just playing around, create it as a flexible flow, which means that you're manually going to assign them onto it. Okay, because that way you don't want to set it up as like a post-registration, because what happens if volunteers start registering, they're suddenly going to be put into this flow and you're just playing around with it. You're just trying to work out how you can utilize it. So do it as a flexible one, and then it means you can manually add the volunteer onto it. But really, I just want to see if you can just go and have a play around with the setting up of it. Really, that's all I care about at this stage. You don't have to go and, if you want to, you can. But you don't have to go and try and experience it and impersonate the volunteer and all that kind of stuff. But it's just a setting up of a flow. So we're going to take we'll take until 25 past. So that's going to be like 14 minutes, whatever that is. Okay, to go away now and have a little play with flows. So remember, what I'm expecting you to do here is go into your system, click on the super admin menu and go down to flows and create a flexible flow. Okay. And if you got any questions while you're doing this, feel free, you can open up and ask me the question and I'll help you through it. So you go in super admin menu, flows, and you're creating a flexible flow. And just see what kind of steps you can add in there to see understand the options available to you. Yep, if you do have any burning questions now, you can just unmute your mic and just ask them while people are doing exercises. It's fine. Yes, Beth.
Hi. I'm looking at the flexible flow, and so the select action at the bottom, when it's talking about granting access, does that mean they have access to every open opportunity? So basically what I'm asking is, can it be that when we have somebody register with us, I'm with Glasgow Life, by the way, when we have somebody register with us and then they specifically apply to an opportunity, then what I'd like to happen is that they enter into that flow where they go through the onboarding, they sign our agreements, references, etc. Then the final action would be that they have granted access to join the session opportunities. So just one specific opportunity, not grant access to every opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yes, that would be access to a specific opportunity.
We
Because
spoke about this. We spoke about this a couple of days ago. There's a couple of issues. I mean, obviously, a flow could be placed, not a post-registration flow, but a regular flow could be placed in front of an opportunity. So there's no action required there. If they pass the flow, they can access that opportunity that the flow protects. So if that works for you, but in a post-registration flow, or a flow that's not connected to an opportunity, there's a couple of difficulties. It's a good idea. During opportunity, we've got these difficulties. How do you choose the opportunity? Some of our vendors might have hundreds. Some of them have got thousands of opportunities. So picking the opportunity in just a purely practical way it can be difficult. If the opportunity is sessional, how do we? They can't just join the opportunity because the volunteer needs to make a decision about which session to join. So there's a couple of little like niggles about doing it. But yeah, if it's possible to take it out, if it's not a registration flow, then you can just use the flow in front of the opportunity, and that happens organically. You don't need to do anything.
So in that scenario, sorry, I've gone.
But for a post-registration flow right now, no, you can't give them access to a single opportunity.
Okay.
What you could do though, so there's two ways. So the way that Rolf just explained there is, you could say, okay, well, every volunteer can register and they can join opportunities, but then, as he said before, you're creating a flow which is a pre-opportunity flow. Okay. So when they try to get on that, after they've registered, when they try to get that onto that specific opportunity, then it makes them go through those particular steps. The other way you could do it is you could say, okay, then I'm going to have a post-registration flow, which is they do these things, and the action after they've completed that post-registration flow is it adds them into this group. And you could have a group called My Quad Bike Riding Group, sticking to the scenario I was talking about before. And then you can create an opportunity and restrict that opportunity to the quad bike riding group.
Okay.
So then only people who have, but you're still going to be in a scenario, well, if everyone's registered, then you're making everybody go through them flow steps.
Yeah.
Then they're all going to be in that group, which means everyone will be able to get onto that opportunity.
Yeah.
But you might restrict other opportunities to something else, a different group, maybe, which no one said this to you. So there's kind of two different ways, things you could play with there. Is the ability to put them in a group, whether you've approved them on the flow, or just do it as a pre-opportunity flow.
Okay.
That makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it would kind of have to be, if they apply to an opportunity, say to be a library volunteer, and they pass the application, it's then a case of us opening up a hidden opportunity where they go through the onboarding steps. Because for us, we have to actually get somebody approved before we go through all the onboarding stages of, there's no point in getting them to sign applications and everything. Okay.
I know we're going to come on to it shortly, actually.
Okay.
It's one of our, so we're talking really, I think what you're saying, one of the triggers that you would like is allow them on the opportunity, but then still put them onto this flow. So you allow them to be a librarian and they can join it and fine, who they are. And but at the same time, once they've become the librarian, they turn up, there's still things that there's steps that you need them to do. You need to give them an orientation around the library. You need to, X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Show them the admin side of things. So you could be a post, and that's one of the things that's coming in the next update of flows. It's one of the key things is adding additional triggers for these flows. So it's not just post-registration, pre-opportunity, and flexible admin assignment, but we're also going to add a post-opportunity. So it lets them get into the opportunity, then it puts them onto the flow.
Right.
Because I've heard of some good uses like the National Trust and Wildlife Trust, particularly, where they say actually once they're on this opportunity, there's like an onboarding bit that has to happen once they're on the opportunity, like the health and safety videos, forms, and this, that, and the other. So that's why we know there's a need for that to be the case. So that's going to come in the next update. There's also a need for exit processes. So what happens if a volunteer decides to remove their profile? There should be some steps that maybe you want them to follow, like complete this feedback form, tell us exactly why, arrange a meeting with them to have a chat with them and find out why they want to leave the program, whatever, use your imagination. But so they're the two things we're looking at. It's post opportunity, so let them get the opportunity, then put them onto it, and if they try to exit the program, have steps there. So
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions we got down here? Is there a way to alert a provider once a volunteer has completed an opportunity flow? Alert the provider on the opportunity flow and they've been accepted. Only admin complete flows at the moment. You can you can do it with steps, because I know when you create the post-step completion, there's the ability to email anybody. I don't think it's there for the flow at the moment. That's a good idea. Yeah, get that added in there. Oh, you can email them from the list of providers. All right, so there is the ability. So you can say when you create the flow, one of the post-flow actions, which means the volunteers completed this flow, what should happen? I created one before where it gave them access to the system. But one of those steps could be also email somebody, and that option's available for you. So you could do it that way. But it doesn't give them a list of providers. Good idea, though. Good idea, Jay. Any more? Anyone to verbally jump up and ask me a question? Nope. Keep reading through these then. I've got 5 more minutes, and I'm going to get onto a final exercise. Actions. Any other ones I've missed here, Rolf? Any questions that other people might be thinking about?
I mean, there's been quite a few questions, but yeah, they're all answered in the messages. I don't think we need to talk about any of them right now.
Okay, no worries.
I just want to reiterate as well, it's come up a couple of times about flows and roles being around. The goal is to replace roles with flows, but we're not going to, harry you into it. You can take as long as you want to convert your roles to flows. But I think everyone will see the benefits and will want to move, but you can take as long as you want.
Cheers, Rolf. Thanks. Right. I think everyone's had a bit of a play around with the system by now, a bit earlier than expected. I'll move on to the final.
I do have a quick question. Sorry, if that's all right. Sorry, Steve.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'll just put my camera back on. I've just created the flexible flow, and I just did it as if we need to collect, I don't know if I'd use it that, I don't know, I've got myself in knots now. If you create a flexible flow and you need to apply it to a volunteer, how do you actually do that? What are the steps there? So yeah, I don't know if you can show us that.
Yeah, sure, I can show you that. Okay.
Because I can see how you can attach the flow, change your opportunity and add the flow on there. But I just wondered, for these ad hoc flexible ones, how you actually ask a volunteer to do it.
Okay, so you see my screen, mouse moving around?
Yeah.
Yep. Super admin menu, flows. Okay, add a flow here. It's a flexible flow. And it's get health and safety qualification or something like that. Maybe it's like a health and safety thing. They have to jump through some hoops to make sure that they can come to, I don't know, volunteer within the museum or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's like a health and safety steps that they have to do. Okay, I add the step here, and I say that they need to. What should we say in here? I need to upload their ID. Do that again. ID. Volunteer can complete it. That's fine. One type of ID. Fine. Save step. Next thing they need to do is. If
you want the short answer, Marie, you just do it from the volunteer profile page.
So.
Yeah,
I've set up a flexible flow, and then how do I initiate it for the said volunteer that I need to do that particular action? So I go onto the the volunteer. I impersonate the volunteer, and then I go and add. Yeah, that's. I don't understand how I.
Okay, so I've created a flow here. So you're happy with this? It's a flexible flow. Save it. Now I can go to any volunteer now. So if I go down to the search volunteers page. Okay. Steve, oh, he's already on a flow. Oh, he's not on this flow though. So Steve Testo. So I might go for Kathleen Starr. Oh, Steve Testo. Anyway, click on Steve Testo. And then down here, I have applications and opportunities. See this one here?
Yeah.
So when I click on that, I'm seeing flow applications and opportunities that they're on. And look, under flow applications, I can choose. I can choose the flow here. Get health and safety. Add them. And now it's added that volunteer to that health and safety one.
Thank you. Yeah, that was just like the bit that I was unsure of, like where to go to do that.
Yeah, maybe we think about the wording. Maybe we should include the word flows in the menu bar option or something. Okay, any other questions?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Nope. Good.
Steve, can I ask, sorry?
What if
it's like 100 volunteers that you want to invite to a flow?
That is a good scenario. So all these,
we are actually about to introduce like a health and safety thing that everybody needs to complete. So a flow would be great to kind of like assign it to, but retrospectively, if we need to get everybody to do it, how would we get lots of existing volunteers to do it?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Make a note of that, Rolf, if you can. I can imagine it would be useful, on here, so you can select the volunteers, and you've got the same way we've got add to group here or book a meeting with them, had to add to flow as an option down here. That's a good update. We haven't thought about, but that would be useful. At the moment, you've got to do it individually, but I can think of scenarios now where you need to do a huge, a lot of people at the same time.
How quickly would that happen then? If is that something that will happen then?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I have to have a chat with. Obviously, Rob's the lead developer on this, but have a chat with them. Sometimes the technical things that I can't think about, but for the next update, it won't be within the next week because we kind of bunch these updates together.
Okay, we're hoping to do it like next month, I think. So if it coincides with that, it'd be great.
If you can open a support ticket for me, Kate, about it, and I'll let you know in there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Cheers. Any more questions? Any more? Nope. Okay. Right.
Yeah, I've sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So just thinking about, I've been experimenting with the flows, and I think from the opposite side, I'm just trying to do a bit of trial and error to see what works, what doesn't work, that sort of thing. But just trying to get the most. One of the biggest things is that communicating with the right group of people, the right type of people, and getting the right message into the right groups of people. We've got such a dynamic group of volunteers and such a wide range of roles and ages. So that's really important to us. So thinking about that flow and some of the steps, to have somebody who's onboarding straight away automated to add to an onboarding group, which part of the admin action at the back end of that would be to then remove from that group and put into the select group. It just means that then all volunteers that are on onboarding process or non-assigned to opportunity, you communicate with to one pool, are you still thinking about volunteering? But two, we're still doing your onboarding. This is where we're up to. And so there's this thing, I mean, I don't know about other people, but there's quite a large group of people that go on, they have a look around, they log in, and but then there's probably about 35% that don't follow up, if that makes sense. So having them in that group to be able to, right, I'm going to message you and I'm going to have that communication, but it'd be good to set that up into some kind of flow.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense for that. You could do it for that for sure. I mean, so you're saying you get about 30% of people who register but don't join anything. Is that what you're?
That's right. Yeah. The attrition. I mean, we never really knew what that attrition would be like in the past. Just if it's not for them, it's not for them, is it? It's fine. But it's good that they found us and they're looking to volunteer. So
yeah, I mean, you could do it with an easy way around that. It's not talking about. You could put it in a flow. Absolutely, it's a flow step. But you could just do it from the add filters here. If you say find me all volunteers where the number of opportunities they're on, On opportunity. Oh, it's not that one. There's one where you can say the number of opportunities. I'm just trying to find it down here. Number of opportunities joined. So you can say equals 0. So you can, that's going to show you all volunteers who registered on the system but haven't joined any opportunities, which is just captured. So that way, then you can select all here, and you could send them an email and try and find out why they haven't. But that's one way to identify them and communicate with them in mass. You could do that, but like you say, you might want to do it as in a flow if you want to kind of deal with them individually, and then you might want to put it in as a flow rather than communicating all of them at once. But yeah, it would be useful for that. Any more questions? All right. Okay. All right. We're going to go on to the final part of here. So activity time. Okay. So we spoke about the different triggers that put a volunteer onto a flow: the post-registration, pre-opportunity, and the manual, which is the flexible one, where the admin triggers it. Is there any other triggers that we can think of? Now, I've mentioned a couple, which is the post-opportunity flow, and there may not be. I'm just seeing if we've got a post-opportunity flow. So when they're allowed on the opportunity, but only when they're on the opportunity does it automatically put them onto the flow. And the exit flow, which means that volunteers try to, delete their account or exit the program, and it puts them onto a specific flow. Can anyone else think of any other flow triggers? Anything else that you think?
I've got one. So
sure.
If that's okay. So I'm thinking about when a volunteer changes age and they hit 16, they will require a DBS. So I'd like a trigger to make sure that that process has started.
Trigger, that is a good idea. Now we're thinking. Thanks for that. Yep, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do that. It just seemed like a good one. Any more? Anything else? Think about your scenarios. Nope. I can't see hands up now, so just unmute your mic and just.
I'm thinking.
Beth's got a hand up. Hi, Beth.
Yeah, I'm thinking about for example, how do people say somebody starts a flow and they never finish a flow? Could there, or they've been signed up to an opportunity, like they're on an opportunity, but they haven't. I'm thinking, like, is there a point where if the flow is not completed by a certain point, or some kind of trigger that if they haven't been active, basically in a certain period of time, at a time they would be put onto a certain flow. Does that make sense?
So it's not, I thought you were going to go down to like I thought you were going to say, well, what happens if they don't complete a step for a certain amount of time, and a reminder email to tell them to complete the steps, which I think.
Yeah, so that's one aspect, is like they're not completing the flow. They're trying, they've basically just lost interest, because we're the same. We get a lot of people who are signing up and don't fully on board with us, and it's big numbers. So I'm thinking about how we would set up the flows. And is there a point, if they've not completed their flow by a certain point of time, they're either removed from the flow, or they're sent an email to reminder, or they're put onto a different flow, in a sense of this is going to be an archived volunteer ultimately because they're not completing.
So for the notifications, we've got notifications coming. I'm just trying to work out the frequency and the timings for those notifications, because you don't want to bombard people.
Okay.
So that will handle the inactivity period. So if an admin, if there's a task that's waiting completion for an admin, they'll get reminders, and also for the volunteers, which will probably be aggregated. We'll probably aggregate those reminders together and send them once a week or something like that. In terms of the auto actions, I mean, that's a great idea for another sort of action, which you can add to a flow if someone hasn't completed the flow within, a prescribed date or prescribed time from when they started. We could potentially do something like delete that application, move them into a different status, those sorts of things. I haven't thought of that, so that's a great idea.
Okay.
I'm going to fill this on screen, I don't know.
Thanks.
Yep. No, I think
Yeah,
that's
the notifications will be coming soon, so at least you'll be able to keep track of the ones that have been taking a long time. You can also view, so when you look at the flow applications in the on the admin side, if you go to the flow applications, you've got a pending applications section, and you can order that by how many days they've been inactive. So it's pretty easy to go and find out the people that are lagging, and then obviously you can do manual actions at that point as well. But that's not automated, but it's very easy to find out who's been on a flow a long time.
Okay, thanks.
I mean, there is the ability as well, just to, when a flow is completed, you know, we say the completion action. So we say when a flow is completed, email somebody or give them access to the system. There is the ability there to put them onto another flow. I know that doesn't actually solve the scenario you just explained, but just letting you know that there is the ability to say, oh, when this flow is completed, then put them onto this second flow, which you can do. But your scenario was not about when it's completed, it was about when it's inactive for a period.
But that's a good point, Steve, because you mentioned earlier on about being able to complete a flow. So we use the word complete, but it could also just, you could superposition finish for that. So if you've got a volunteer and they haven't, you've checked that pending applications, they haven't done anything for 40 days, you could go into that application and complete it. And you can use that link to say, ignore the steps, we're just going to complete anyway, and then perform the post-completion action in that point. But that would entail then having that flow. So it's probably best to delete them off the flow. But you could complete any time if you wanted to move them on to something else.
Can you just remove them from the flow? Say, for example,
you can there's a delete button for all the applications. You can just take them straight off.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem. That's a good idea there. Any more for any more? Any other triggers that we could think of?
I just put some notes in on the messaging. I was just looking at the application for the custom questions and some of those bits and pieces, and I've literally in that test I put in a link to an automated questionnaire, an exit questionnaire. I thought, oh, that's quite interesting, so just thought I'd trial that as a part of the process. But think also about when we're getting feedback, some people don't, whilst we've got lots of thumbs and feedback and opportunity feedback, sometimes people are generally uncomfortable with doing that sort of thing. But to have a flow and to reinsure them within a bespoke flow, which could be individual, that might be a nice way of give them a nudge, should we say, to give something back or ask that question. But also linking to, I was also thinking about linking to your benefits and people taking up benefits of your program. So, you know, there's all sorts of things that they could access, did you knows, but it's kind of, what's the call to action? How do they, so it's just making sure we've got those bits built in and they can see it, acknowledge it within that flow, and then they can action it then, can't they? So it's making sure that we can actually take that benefit on and use it. So I suppose it's, if there were instructions, we can build in instructions of how to do that, a little bit of training. Can you put in, so I know there's some links and what have you, is there the bandwidth to put in small videos and stuff in there?
You put links through to videos. You wouldn't, there's technical reasons why you can't upload videos onto the system, but you can put links. So you might have like a YouTube video, and absolutely you can put hyperlinks in the steps saying watch this video, and they click on it, and then it opens up the YouTube video.
Yeah.
The reason being is the servers, when you do videos, you have to, there's specific servers they use to stream videos so they don't buffer and get stuck, and that's what YouTube use. They pay a lot of money for them. So even we don't stream videos from our servers. We stream them from, tend to be streamed from YouTube, the help videos and this, that, and the other.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions before I move on? I think we're near the end now. Okay. Future developments. Okay. So the future developments, I mentioned these. So the flow triggers, so having when they exit the program, or when the volunteer is approved on the opportunity, so they're already on the opportunity, and then it puts them on a set of steps to health and safety videos and this, that, and the other. And I went through that scenario. We also plan to add additional steps, so allow volunteers to join a session on an opportunity called induction. So this is something I've spoken to Rolf about, actually. It was about some of you I noticed had this particular scenario where a volunteer would register on the system, and then you said, well, we have induction days. And one of the first things I want them to do is come and join us on an induction day. Okay. And the induction days you do them once a month or something like that. Okay. So I thought, well, how do we do that? How do we build that into a flow in some way? So one of the things we're looking at is having the step type, which is adding the volunteer onto the opportunity, or allowing the volunteer to select an induction session on a particular opportunity. So without getting too complicated, this is what my thinking is. You could create an opportunity called induction, and you could have all the sessions for that opportunity, which are once a month, the first Wednesday of every month, something like that. And that's your induction days that you're planning to run, to deliver. And then when the volunteer registers, it puts them onto the flow. And the first step on the flow is, please choose a session from this opportunity. So the flow type is allowing them to choose a session from a particular opportunity that you've kind of defined within the flow step. And yeah, so that, I think that would be a useful one. Is there any other things like that you could think of? Try and think about your onboarding processes. Is there anything? So I know that one, there's certainly a few people I could think in mind who would find that particular scenario useful, because that way then you just go to, they're automatically on the opportunity, the induction opportunity, and they can't get anything else until they've done that particular meeting. And all you're doing every time you want to add a new induction meeting on there, you just go to the opportunity called induction and add a new session on there for the next 6 months worth of induction meetings. Anything like that? Can anyone think of any scenario?
So the other scenario we've got is training, completion of online courses. So as it stands now, they all sit within our a separate provider for training, which is a staff and volunteer provider. And we've now got a volunteer suite, if you like. So we've got a section specifically for volunteers with a number of different training videos and courses, which will vary dependent on the type of volunteer they are. So a lot of them it's in-house stuff and nice to do stuff, and these are the sort of things we'd expect from. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
So as part of that flow, I want them to be able to access the training. So get into the training, but then I want to, without
is the training like a separate training system, is it, or something?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and obviously keeping track of it all is a bit of a mare, but what I'd like to do is have some kind of indication that they've been on it, they've seen it, and they've completed. So you think that would have to be a manual thing for me to go and check and then say, yeah, they've done it? Or would you say that, to simplify, we'll say as a bare minimum, we've got a specific training session on, we've got a volunteer induction, so a bit of a wider volunteer induction access. So we could use it as one training video to start with, or a session to start with, that they go in and they must say that that's been completed for me to go double check and manually sign that off that way, or as a way of interacting or talking to.
There's a couple of things there. So absolutely, you could create a step now that says click on this link here, and it takes them over to your training system. Or click on this link here and book on our safety course, whatever it is. They click on the link, they book on the safety course, then on the system, on the TeamKinetic system, they're saying, yes, I've done this thing, and they can complete it. Fine. And what's the system done? Well, it's allowed the volunteer to say they've watched the health and safety, done the health and safety training, and it's also given the volunteer a link to that health and safety training. So that's kind of what it's. So to help you out in that respect, in terms of linking it up, so it's kind of automated. You can do it, but it's not really what we're talking about today. So that's about APIs. So you need an API system. You could do it in a way that.
What we do is we ask them to upload the certificate from the training course.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay.
The issue we have is with things which we have to be repeated at a certain interval. So we have to say to them, upload it as a qualification with an expiry date and check that.
Yeah, so first aid or whatever. Yeah.
Can be redone 2 years' time,
I mean,
a couple of things coming that'll help with both of these. So the next big thing we're working on is there's something called Moodle, which is a LMS, which some of you may have used before. This is a learning management system. So you can put courses on there and all the normal sorts of stuff. You know, you can develop your courses, and videos, and slides, and all the rest of it. But we're going to offer it to our customers and build a bridge between that and TeamKinetic, so you'll be able to automatically update the volunteer profile with the courses that they've done in that LMS. So that'll help with the courses and stuff, and also with repeating training things. We were talking about that the other day, about tightening up the notifications and the processes around when certifications become expired. I mean, right now you get an alert to say they're expiring, but there isn't much else. So we are thinking about both those things.
Yeah, that'd certainly be useful with the Moodle LMS as well. I mean, I'm trying to think of kind of workarounds you could do now for that. If you had an API, you could have the API update a volunteer's profile field, which say they've got a profile field which says training complete or something like that.
Yeah.
Then basic training complete. Then you could, if you set up the API between TeamKinetic and that training system, you could potentially in theory, get the training system to update that detail against the volunteer once they completed the course. So that profile field, which is called basic training complete, suddenly changes from no to yes, because the API has updated it because they've done the training in your other training system. And then that way you'll be able to view it within the step. You'll be able to see that that's been updated. That particular field, custom profile field, has been updated from no to yes. So the training must be complete. So yes, I can complete the task. I can complete the step. So that's one way you could do it, but it would all rely on initially getting the link between the training system and TeamKinetic. We have an open an API gateway, an API gateway, which allows you to any other system could potentially talk to TeamKinetic, but you need to get someone to develop the link between the two and actually tell it how to talk to each other, what information it's sharing. Oh, it's sharing the custom profile question. You know, I mean, all that kind of stuff has to be set up.
Yeah, yeah. Then it has to be maintained.
Yeah. Any other ideas? We've got some really good ideas today. This is very useful. Can you think, this is kind of what we're talking about anyway, any other step types? So uploading files, custom questions, which is what I was talking about then. You could create a custom question, which is basic training complete, and link it via the API. Or it could just be a custom question like, what is your t-shirt size? So once they've registered, one of the onboarding things is you're asking for the t-shirt size. References, booking meetings, the admin does. Background checks, the admin does. And confirmation steps like, yes, I confirm that I've watched this video, things like that.
Yeah.
And anything else? Any of them? I think we've covered a lot. Just want to make sure. Nope. Okay.
Good.
No? Okay, good. Right. And that's it. We're wrapping up there. So lots of help within the system. These, just to let you know, these masterclasses and stuff, rather than showing you all that, might be easy to show you on the system itself. So if you go to help and support down to masterclasses and training, you'll see these previous masterclasses start. That's how they book on it. Training, wrong one here, Steve. Tutorial videos. That's how to book on the masterclass. Sorry, tutorial videos. And you've got masterclasses on the left-hand side here. So this is where the video for this session is going to appear. Okay, once it's been edited down. So you can see previous masterclasses in here, and there's also lots of help. Obviously, because it's a new function, we're still do have a user manual for it, a basic user manual, which I will share with everybody on this training. But it'll also be available within here, within your help sections. But obviously, we're building now as we're kind of developing new features. That's going to be changing over the next few months. Yes. Any final questions before we wrap things up? Nope. If you do have any specific questions, as Rolf said, around moving from roles to flows or anything else, support tickets, you need to tell us something basically specific to you. Support tickets. Right, we're gonna wrap it up now. So thank you for your time. And those of you who have any burning questions, I said there'd be a bit of time at the end. We've got 12 minutes. Then you can hang on the line if you want to ask me any questions, just one-to-one. Other than that,
yeah, we've got a question. I don't know who it is, sorry, because the name just says Volunteering Barnet. So someone from Volunteering Barnet just wants you to show them again how you can add a flow to a specific opportunity.
Okay, no worries. Well, I'll let if you hang on, Barnett, I will go through that in a second. I'll just say bye to everybody else who doesn't want to see that. Thank you for your time, much appreciated, and I'll see you next masterclass probably. Okay, thanks, guys.